maybe about myself as well, but I always love it. I always love it. Anyhow, spawning over in the top left-hand side. In fact, they're both playing for Storm Gaming. That's awesome. It is epic.
And in the bottom right, also for Storm Gaming, he is JonSnow.
I am way too distracted by the player cams for these players. Like JonSnow, I always thought, man, this guy's got the smile that could, you know, melt your heart. In fact, there it is. It's coming out a little bit. I'm not sure why. Something happened. But I was also just looking at Epic, and I'm like, man, these two guys, they're good-looking dudes. Like, if your sister in the future like brought home that guy, you'd be like, wow, you well hit above your weight, you did. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how well these guys are going to do.
I don't know if you're just really complimenting them or you're saying that your future sister, hypothetical sister, is ugly. I don't.
Oh no, my sister's real. My sister's real. No, she's a good-looking girl as well. But no, I'm just mainly crediting these two, Zombie. Mainly crediting these two.
Okay, all right. So like going above and beyond. They're just really, really, really handsome. Gotcha. I mean, yeah, I think that's they both have that charm, right? That parents would instantly trust. And I actually do know that both of them are pretty darn good guys. Really enjoy hanging out with them whenever there's NA events again. And a part of many at Cheesadelphia, for instance, as that is one of the bigger supporters, you know, tournament-wise, especially when we get back to LANs, as well as being part of one of the staple North American teams, Storm Gaming. I think they actually have been playing against each other for quite some time. I think JonSnow is the more recognizable name, sure. But Epic has always been there, just kind of being a very good Terran. Not necessarily being super flashy or getting the best win rate, right? So people kind of gloss over him. But I actually think that he's been super solid for a while. And if it wasn't Future, who kind of made more of a name for himself, then it was going to be Epic. And we'll see what happens this year as we start up a brand new year of StarCraft 2. Well, Epic's going to be tested. Roachborn's on the way.
Yeah, so JonSnow opened up 6 lings and lost a drone. So normally, for those at home, you can open up just 4 lings and kind of save everything and make sure you don't lose a drone. But here, he opened up an extra set of lings to be super safe and still lost a drone. Definitely a start that Epic can look at and be like, oh yeah, it's definitely not bad for me. Back at home as well, he went for a second gas, did Epic. He's obviously got the Marine as well to deny Overlord scouting, but he's gone for the second gas and not the third CC straight away. So he's doing what I presume is a Banshee opening, which is actually one of the nicer, safer openings against something like JonSnow, which is obviously being cheeky with the roaches.
It's exactly what you want to get someone going for early roaches. And that is going to be a beautiful scout into the main. JonSnow starts up a lair, suspiciously timed. But actually, yeah, is Epic actually going to believe that? I am not so sure. As long as he continues on with his build to Banshees, he should be feeling very confident.
Yeah, I love it. And he's even switched off his barracks with the factory, so he's producing 2 Marines at a time. I hope he doesn't overcommit to the defenses here. Like, I'm looking at this, and he's still producing SCVs 2 at a time. He's not just completely stunted with that. And he does see a few units are starting to arrive. In fact, okay, he sells one of the bunkers. Like, I actually don't hate it. He might lose some units here, maybe some SCVs, but I think he's going to be in great shape after all this.
I think maybe pulling the SCVs would have made this like the best hold, but JonSnow even taking time to kill a supply depot, take whatever he can get, I suppose, then goes on the bunker. SCV repair is kind of late and a bit awkward, all piled up like that. But there's the Banshee to hopefully save the day, and with no speedlings to follow this up, it is pretty easy for the Banshee to clean things.
Oh, it certainly is. And look at that Hellion as well. The repair on it, buying time, and losing 3 SCVs for this kind of roach push. I mean, JonSnow, I don't necessarily made the best out of a bad situation, but he's not down and out yet. I just think Epic handled it pretty all right, actually, all things said and done.
Yeah, he really tried to walk the line, though, didn't he? Like, it felt like if he made one wrong step, then he was actually going to fall off the cliff and wouldn't be pretty. But no, it was pretty much perfect. He made the right decisions. He decided that it was good enough on the defense and didn't over-defend, which can be a problem. Definitely not one here. So now he gets to use his Banshees offensively. It is I do say that as a... I know how odd it can kind of make your build order when you do transfer over to faster tanks. You just feel kind of off. But his build order's not even really that messed up. Add on barracks, plural? Waiting for the second one to go down.
It will, it will.
There we go.
He actually did it just as he had the minerals, but he's gone for like the very quick engineering bays as well. These Banshees won't get much done, but it is worth poking and keeping your opponent honest. Did he cancel Cloak? He did cancel Cloak. Yeah.
About like 80% done, I thought, but...
Yeah, it was definitely very close to being done, and he does see that JonSnow is well prepared for this, and maybe you can always think like, aha, I gave away the Banshee, like obviously he's going to be prepared, but Cloak Banshees are so hard to deal with, like keeping that Overseer in all the right locations and Spore Crawlers and stuff, but I guess if you look at this, like 3 spores were produced, maybe it's already done a lot of damage inadvertently.
I think it kind of has. I mean, they already paid for themselves by helping to defend, I would say. And then, they forced the Spore Crawlers. The Queens are running around as opposed to spreading creep. They're going to get a little bit of scouting. I also think that Epic probably knows a fairly common follow-up to this is right into Spire. It's a very ladder Zerg thing to do. And when you're already feeling like a little uncomfortable with maybe the amount of tanks that you produced much quicker than normal, it's already up to 4. And you're like, okay, not the best use of 2 Banshees, but anyways, and you know they're on their way to mutas, which tanks can't shoot up. I do think you kind of want to expedite the process into those Marines, the barracks building. So canceling the Cloak makes some sense. I just hope that he doesn't get pinned back. If JonSnow has his way and just uses mutas to scare Epic and say like, don't attack me, that would be a grave mistake for Epic to make. He has a good army, he could push out, and just needs some missile turrets back at home.
And that's the thing, right? Like, mutas, they can absolutely get you back into a game. And whenever you're against mutas, you have to realize, like, okay, this guy's doing this because he wants me to stay on my side of the map. Like, he wants to use these mutas aggressively. As soon as you start making them have to use them defensively, or, make no mistake, JonSnow has to do something here to make Epic make mistakes. And this is nice use of the mutas.
Not bad. Finds the building barracks, finds Marines just shy of number that could actually tackle the mutas. But then, what is it like on the defense? JonSnow has a couple of Banelings with Baneling speed, but up against 4, 5 tanks in this really brutal position on our mana side as well. That hatchery is a goner. JonSnow is better off just letting it fall and trying to take a base elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely not a bad push by Epic. And this is one of those situations where we can be like, oh, that was a really nice push by Epic. Like, he knew he had the advantage. He isn't being crazy and just going gung-ho all the way in. He's like, yeah, this is actually a big deal, canceling this. Shouldn't let these mutas pick off too much, but also, I know it's easy for us. Oh, those mutas do fly past the Marines. We can see that muta count isn't super-duper growing. Now we can on the production tab, but yeah, that makes you think, okay, does Epic realize this? What's he going to go for next?
Well, he hasn't really started up any Widowmine production. In fact, his factory has had, I would say, like a couple large gaps. He's up to 8 total barracks, but his 4th CC is building. I feel a lot more comfortable if we saw some Drilling Claws and Widowmines on the way as opposed to just single tank production, yet still kind of a bit late on the 2-2 as well. I mean, Epic's not throwing the game or anything. I just personally would feel more comfortable with more Widowmines. But this is very standard, going 8 barracks and then 1 tank production, because he, like the Marines, he's producing 12 at a time. He's going to have anti-muta, which is totally great. The biggest worry is the Banelings, which they've only just caught up in upgrades, and he's 20 supply ahead. Like, this is super scary for JonSnow. As long as Epic splits here, this is such a hard army to deal with. Absolutely. The tanks on the front line, as long as they're focus firing at all, going to be able to take out those Banelings. Back at home, though, this is where tanks aren't nearly as good. Well, it's actually a good number of Marines, and the Banelings are actually taken out before they hit the Marines, but they bought maybe enough time for the mutas to take them out. Is it really going to be enough damage to make up for what's happening on JonSnow's side of the map? Maybe, if Epic doesn't actually pay attention. Oh my goodness, the last second move away there does save most of the Marines, but oof, that was close to being surrounded.
Oh, I mean, that was quite spicy. That was definitely spicy. Both these players worked with what they were given. I like how Epic played, though, overall. I know you were like, maybe some Widowmines will make you feel safer and stuff, but Epic did. He like stayed to a build, and he did it, and he executed it very well. He reacted very nicely to scouting that Roach Warren, and most importantly, he went for that scout on that Roach Warren. The game could have been totally different if those 6 Lings of JonSnow and the Queen denied that Reaper from getting in the first place, but yeah, that's just how StarCraft goes sometimes. Like, it can come down to a real flick of whether a unit got an extra hit on another unit or not.
I mean, I wonder if even not scouting it would have been the worst thing. He was already going into Banshees, having 6 Hellings as opposed to 4 Marines and a tank or whatever he had. I think it still would have been enough. But I mean, of course, having that prepared bunker, like the mental preparation is always very good. It also kind of makes the Zerg feels bad moment because they know they're scouted. They know they can't do very much about it. And JonSnow just, has to do the thing that most people do because it is the only way to try and trip things up, and that's go into mutas. But Epic, he had a pretty nice time getting up to 3cc. Not really a hiccup thanks to those roaches. Just goes for an 8 racks, the single factory, and while he does grab a 4th behind it, I think he just knew that was going to be an execution push, right? He just knew he was going to win. There wasn't any creep spread. There was very little economy for a Zerg. The media numbers were never going to be that large. So he's like, yeah, I'm just going to continue producing 1 tank at a time and shove Marines down your throat, which kind of almost backfired if those Banelings had connected, but it was okay. It was fine.
Yeah, that was maybe one thing that we can get critical about is like that pre-spread kind of thing. All those Marines kept going to one clump, and it's like that can get really gnarly there when you're a Terran fan and what have you. But yeah, I think overall I'm quite impressed. I think Epic played solid actually, and he wasn't super all in with that. He was taking the 4th base as we talked about. And he seemed to deal with all the run-by attempts pretty okay, actually, especially those last moments. And it isn't easy to do that, especially when you're under pressure. You're on the big stage here. This is your first game after the off-season kind of happened. It is nice to see that he's already looking quite solid.
It was very clean play. I think also JonSnow has been making more of a name for himself as someone who was aggressive in the early game. So I think this also is some experience showing through as far as them playing against each other, same team, same ladder. I think Epic is going to be feeling very confident after he correctly assessed game 1. So maybe this guy in the top right can mix it up some other way, maybe do a solid macro build. I don't know. He is the blue Zerg, JonSnow.
And spawning over in the bottom left as the red Terran, it is Epic. I'm just thinking about.
Well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the build that he went for. Like, have you ever noticed that a lot of NA players, say if there are trends or metas or builds, for example, like the 3cc stuff off 1 gas is very, very popular and common right now for Koreans and Europeans, especially like Clem and stuff in TVZ. Mm-hmm. Americans tend to follow suit, but quite a bit later. Have you ever noticed that kind of stuff?
Well, I always, if people ask like stylistic differences, I would always be like, Europe's X, Korea's Y, and then North America is like Y-2. Like, it was just like, it's a bit later than Korea and not as well executed, but yeah, it comes by a little bit later, a little bit slower.
I've always wondered why that is, because yeah, if something's working or something is meta, is it down to, oh, I tried it, but like everybody was too cheesy over in America, so I couldn't be as greedy as possible kind of thing? Or I wonder what actually like kind of stunts it, because I know that TLO talked about when he went to America initially, he was like, well, normally I'm the crazy one, and playing against everybody else that's also crazy, it was kind of Wild West almost. But saying that, Epic is doing the SCV scout, which is the very nice and normal thing to do early on in this matchup. Does go for the second gas as well. So maybe this is also a stylistic thing, and he's just doing what he's very, very comfortable with.
I think it might be stylistic. I do think it's also a little bit of an indicator of confidence. When Clem goes for a 3cc 5 times in a row versus a Zerg, I mean, you just know he's confident. Oh, nice pick off there from JonSnow. Yeah, you just know he's confident. It's worked okay, fine, but 5 times in a row, come on, maybe you're going to finally get cheese. And he's like, well, even if I do, I'm fine. When I watch North American Terrans kind of like repeatedly go for a Banshee opener, not just on a particular map or against a particular player, I do kind of see that as just being more cautious and ultimately leading to a worse like mid game. But that's being very dramatic. As far as to why they're later, I do think it's one of those things where it's just like, for Europeans and Koreans, usually it's more of a thought process of like, well, if I do Y and I see B, then go C. And for North America, it's like, you don't know if they're going through the entire alphabet, A through Z. They could just throw in a totally like different letter from the Russian alphabet in there. You don't know. So you can never trust what you see. So I think that does kind of mar practice when you're just like, this guy's 5,400. And yet somehow I think he can beat me just by being as wild as possible.
Yeah, it is cool. It is definitely a fun region to play in, and also just maybe a very frustrating region to play in also. It's hard to monitor how good you're actually getting when you can kind of lose to anything. We do have Hellions out in the field, and JonSnow is probably kicking himself that this is the map where he didn't choose to do that roach attack, especially when his opponent lost the first Reaper and didn't scout everything. But these Lings, they won't really get much done. It's just a bit of scouting info, really. And yeah, just get to see the Hellions are still in production. And this is lining up to be a very normal TVZ, honestly.
Yeah, kind of a fast layer coming down for JonSnow, but not really out of the ordinary. He did kind of see a tech lab building something, but that's actually really not clear as to whether it was Stim or Cloak. If you're going for a really fast third CC, I don't think there's as many supply depots at the front, is the only thing I can say. So JonSnow might actually figure that is actually Cloak. Or just, again, I think we're talking what would Epic most likely do. Yeah, probably Banshees to be super safe.
Very often I'm looking at Terran builds and I'm like, well, this is so obvious from the Protoss perspective, right? Terran's doing this. And then it's like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that the wall off doing that would actually suggest X or Y. But yeah, for us, we see this and we're like, okay, it's kind of obvious what he's doing. Oh, by the way, it's a super fast lair by JonSnow. Like, he's forgoing upgrades, so it does look like it probably will be a muta build again from him.
Yeah. I mean, I know some Zerg players have been doing decently fast layers just to make sure centrifugal hooks finishes at a very proper time. But when I watched JonSnow do it, or like Scarlet, I'm going to assume that it is for a faster Spire. And there it is, as we're talking about. It's a Spire down. The Banshee's probably not going to get a whole lot done again because layers down, Overseer is available. But if they can pick off even a handful of drones, or just, even finding the fourth base, pretty common with the Banshees, that would be fantastic.
The Queens were dealing with the Hellions on the far left side of the map, so these Banshees are getting a little bit done. 4 drones and keeping them alive is actually a big deal, leading them all to the main base to stop the spread of creep a little bit. Upgrades will be later for JonSnow, which isn't abnormal when you go for mutas. He chooses to go for the fast mutas, maybe some banelings and the upgrades at least, and then get the actual upgrades for the melee and armor a little bit later on.
That's the downside, of course, but hopefully the upside is that you control the pacing of the game. You really threaten with the mutas. It's not really a great game so far from JonSnow, having lost 7 drones to 2 Banshees, and one of them still alive and sharking around. Queens, again, forced to deal with that as opposed to spreading as much creep as possible. But it's not like a terrible game. It really comes down to how he deals with his first push. Epic's already moving out. Combat shields won't be done, but he can start clearing up some of the creep and get his tank up against that rock, which is quite annoying.
Yeah, I've been very conscious about looking at what Epic's been producing and when, and his macro's been pretty on point. Like, his SC2 count right now, it's 62 to 67 drones, and it's not as if JonSnow's been missing a beat in that production, and now he's attacking here in a very good location as well. That single tank there, I love that he changed the target fire onto the Queens instead of pokes firing on the Zerglings, but it will get cleaned up, and JonSnow had to reveal his mutas rather early here.
Yeah, they will be able to chase down one of the medevacs, but they kind of want a little bit more if they can. All right, they're not going to push it, knowing that some reinforcements could be on the way. Instead, the mutas join up with the Lings that were reinforcing. They looked a little bit late, but they're here now. Going to try and do maybe a bit of a counter. Banelings get found out, so I guess that's not going to work out anymore. And now the mutas do their job. They bounce around, they buy some time, get some Marines. maybe a tank. That would be nice. He's going after it. No, he's going to actually go after it. He's going to get it. He's going to get it. Cost a muta, cost 2 mutas, I believe. So I'm not sure it was 100% worth it.
Yeah, and oh wow, JonSnow just kind of going rabid here with a bunch of lings, which doesn't look like they're going to be able to get much done. And even though I think the start of this was good for JonSnow, I think this continuous trading isn't really that good for him at all. The one positive is this armory was a little bit late for Epic, but revealing the extra 3 racks on the front as well, yeah, I think JonSnow is going to know exactly what he's up against, which is the same thing. It's just he's not as in bad shape this game.
He's not. Going up against an 8 racks, though, you're going to be very careful. It's very easy to over-dedicate to the first push and then be like, oh, okay, they just have a continuous stream of Marines, and I can't have my Banelings in time. So it is still a tricky thing to play against. He's going to once again dedicate with his mutas, loses 1, but takes out a lot of the reinforcements. His creep spread's still back at home, providing the Banes extra speed as they move through. The tank was not sieged, but the arc was there. How many more Banelings does JonSnow have? None. He's completely out of Banelings and completely out of Lings.
Yeah, his upgrades didn't finish. The hatchery is taken down, and Epic, he's just keeping things going at home. He's even producing a 4th base on the 3rd location. Will get cancelled by JonSnow by the looks of it. No, just keeps it alive. Epic's playing very well here.
Yeah, I mean, that pre-spread actually, I think, really did wonders for him. Again, kind of having a good spread, but that is going to be enough to push him back for now. I was talking about the first engagement around that 4th, or just this 3rd, actually. If he had not been pre-split and that tank wasn't siege, that could have been a lot deadlier. As it is, Epic still has a ton of production, and he's working his way to 2-2. JonSnow has given away a decent amount of mutas. He's lost 9. So his count of mutas, which you would really hope to be up to like 20 at this point, or even higher, hopefully with an upgrade, right, to really threaten the backstab. He just had to put 800 more into it to get it to a decent number. That's not leaving a lot of room for Banelings.
No, and he's caught up in upgrades for now. Like, upgrades are equal, but look at Epic. 2-2's almost done here. And I mean, it wasn't absurdly fast or anything, but that's going to be a lot of Marines with way better upgrades. Only 2 tanks, so that's kind of a saving grace. But yeah, +2 armor, +2 melee hasn't even started yet for JonSnow.
Didn't have the gas for it. So once again, putting a lot of it into the 5 mutas. Give him a total of 21, but that's still not going to take on the main Marine fighting force. A little bit of a drop from Epic is nice. So far defended. But again, this attack on top of the now 4th base, as you would call it, is getting deadlier and deadlier, because it's also losing all that creep spread that has been, it's pretty instrumental to a Zerg hold, and it's starting to disappear.
Yeah, I'm not sure JonSnow should be fighting here. Like, what are you trying to gain? Like, this Expo, it's dead, it's gone. These are some nice lings doing a little bit of damage here, trying to slow down the progress of Epic's 4th, but this is the base that you really need to fight for now, which I'm glad he forced his attention over here.
I'm glad that he's going to move over, hopefully get more creep spread over to that side too, but that doesn't stop this current army from continuing to run into the natural. He still needs to focus up here, try and get creep tumors if he can. Epic's just taking this opportunity to expand to the left and push to the left, which is just really difficult for the Zerg to push back on when they don't have a good start, which JonSnow has not. At least his muta count is actually threatening at this point, but he hasn't even done any threatening with it. He's come back and looking for some freebie medevacs.
Oh, this is gnarly, though. This is good by JonSnow. Takes out a bunch of Marines. The muta's fighting kind of toe-to-toe with the Marines.
Oh,
They
no.
should be doing that, but the Banelings are going to be getting good connections, maybe. Epic splitting really decently, actually, minimizing a lot of the losses.
Yeah, I mean, the start of that fight wasn't too bad. JonSnow was able to collect a big pile of Marines, but the rest of it may be a little bit of an overextension from JonSnow. Now, this is, prime real estate for the mutas. They want to be able to tackle the leftovers, especially the Marauders, which build, not that fast and a little more expensive. But they tangoed with nothing but Marines for so long, but he was at 25 mutas. Now he's down to 15. Tackling a Thor when the mutas are low and surrounded by Marines. Okay, that's going to send him down to 10 mutas.
That was ambitious. That last little move there against the Thor and the Marines. 3-3 has not yet started for Epic, but I'll forgive him here because he has been doing a lot of economic damage to his opponent by just forcing out so many units. And I look at the income tab as well, or rather the amount of workers both of them have. It is not often that you see a Terran this far ahead in workers while also still piling on the pressure. That is a ballsy top left base by Epic as well. That is a funny expansion pattern.
You know, at this point, it's very unlikely it's going to be scouted. All focus is on the right side as Epic once again pushes in. A couple of Widowmines popping off. The Thor being micro doesn't quite get that last shot, but it's down to nothing but mutas, and that's not going to be enough. Epic takes the 2-0 over JonSnow. Very solid play right there. That just looked like